Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Now, I don't know about you, but I think Jared Leto is a total tease. I think he's going a little overboard with his hints at the Joker, and I think he might have jumped the shark yesterday when he just tweeted or Instagrammed a photo of himself saying transformation and then never showed any transformation or hint of transformation. He was just like, wait for it. And I'm like, well, I appreciate your enthusiasm with the role, Jared Leto, but I think someone needs to sit you and also David Ayer down and explain how you tease for a movie. Because while I'm still very excited about Suicide Squad, and you should expect a lot of coverage of that movie coming from Beyond the Trailer quite soon, I have some videos specifically planned for it, because again, I think there's a lot of potential here. I think that from a publicity standpoint, I'm getting a little tired of Jared Leto's teases. And so I wanted to talk about that today and see how you guys felt. For instance, he's been teasing the Joker voice at some of his shows. He has a band, and then he'll occasionally, when talking to the audience between songs, break into what we're assuming, by the way, is the Joker voice. And it sounds pretty good. I have some interesting theories, which I'll be sharing with you soon, about what kind of Joker I think he'll be. I think Jared Leto is a very interesting choice. And again, as I said, I'm glad he's so interested in playing the Joker. But if I were Warner Brothers, and I specifically was part of Warner Brothers' publicity department, I would probably call up Jared Leto and I'd be like, look, I love that you're promoting this movie for free, no less. I mean, look at Kevin Hart. As we saw from the Sony hack, he wanted to be paid to tweet. But Leto does it for free. And he tweets and he Instagrams and he does all these different things about the character. And again, in the beginning, it was really cool. And it's, again, it's wonderful to see someone so excited to take on a role like this. Although if anyone was trying to fill Heath Ledger's shoes, I think that they would be excited as well. Especially if they felt they're up to the challenge, which Leto clearly feels that he is. And I think he might be. But I just feel that, if you cry, it's like the boy who cried wolf. If you cry Joker too many times, I worry, how we'll feel, later on down the line. Now, of course, when we first do get to see the Joker, I'm sure it'll be a big deal and it'll be something everyone pays attention to. But I think that, how far out is that, and how many more of these teases or non-teases is Jared Leto going to put out there? So that's the question I want to pose to you. Are you enjoying Jared Leto teasing you? Do you like hearing snippets of the Joker voice that, but it doesn't go anywhere? He just, tests voices out and says different things here and there, but it's not even like he's saying lines that will eventually add up to something from the movie or to give away something from the movie, right? I mean, he's got to think in that level of layers, because, in the fanboy community, which I am a proud member of, we like our puzzles. We like to figure things out and to know what's going on and, kind of feel like have that interactive quality. So he's not even doing something along those lines. To some level you might think, well, then maybe he doesn't totally understand the fandom, which is worrisome if you're going to try to appeal to said fandom. But I would just say, don't tweet something or use the voice unless it's going to really mean something, or if you're really going to give people something of note. I mean, I liked it when he first showed off the hair. That was a drastic change for him, obviously. He sported the long, dark brown hair, the Jesus hair, for quite some time now. So to go platinum blonde and cut it all off, that was a big deal. But we don't need to continually see pictures of it. Then he shaved his eyebrows off, but now they seem to be back on. Was that the transformation? He was like, my eyebrows are back on. It's just, I think that's indicative of Jared Leto's teases as of late. So I'm just curious, what do you think? What do you think of the teases overall coming out of Suicide Squad? For instance, David Ayer will tweet a picture of the Arkham binders. And all I really felt was, I don't like that logo for Arkham. It's a little too 70s, a little too Washington, D.C. But we'll see. Again, I'm very excited about the movie. I just think their publicity campaign is not at the level of, Marvel is very good, obviously. I think DC is amazing at their publicity overall, with the exception of Suicide Squad. And then also Deadpool. Deadpool has amazing publicity. Whoever's in charge of Deadpool is a genius. They are able to not only get people talking about it, but every time we see something about the character, like they just recently showed, they revealed that the eyes are going to be CGI. But, just to see Deadpool walking around, it looks so cool. Every reveal and everything that's shown to us is something that takes us, a step further, or it pulls us further into our excitement for the movie. I'm not seeing that with Suicide Squad yet, and I would urge them to, get a handle on their talent and make sure that, because he's the only one tweeting. You don't see Will Smith doing this. You don't see Margot Robbie. So it makes me feel that Leto's a lone wolf and, taking this upon himself. So again, just want to hear your thoughts about this down below. So that's the first story of the day. Now, the second story of the day has to do again with Netflix. This is, I guess, the theme of today's episode, at least for these first two stories, is like trepidation, you know, being unsure if something maybe is a good idea after all. And this is Netflix content. Now, Netflix is spending literally millions and millions of dollars to acquire what they feel is top quality content to stream to you for the same rate as if you didn't watch it. It's like $7. Although, again, my theory is that HBO Now, if successful, will significantly drive up the price of Netflix. Probably be on par, $15 a month. We'll see if people are willing to pay that much money, especially when Apple launches their TV service. Expect a lot of changes in the digital area, and that might also include price point. So anyway, they've acquired another movie over at Netflix, and this is from their good friend Ricky Gervais, who of course they're distributing his show Derek, where he plays a character who works at a nursing home. Tried to watch it. Maybe it's too British for me. I usually enjoy British humor and British television quite a bit. Could not get into Derek. But they've acquired this movie that he's about to make. He's writing and directing it, and it's called Special Correspondents. And it seems like it's based on Brian Williams. They claim that this was written or put together in October, so it's before the whole Brian Williams thing, but it just screams Brian Williams. So they would have to reference it now because everybody else would be thinking it when they watch the movie. So I'm sure Ricky Gervais will have some role in the film, but he's not the star. The star is Eric Bana, and that's great. I mean, a lot of us like Eric Bana. I like Eric Bana. He actually started out doing comedy, and that's something he never really had been able to do in the mainstream, at least in Hollywood. Never something he's really been utilized for. So maybe Ricky Gervais aims to fix that. But this is someone whose career was really seriously derailed by being Ang Lee's Hulk, and he just really never got it back on track. After Black Hawk Down, there was a time when Eric Bana was I don't want to swear. I was going to say, I think you know what I was going to say, but he was the awesomeness. And not anymore. Now he's not. So what's he going to play? He's going to play a New York radio host whose arrogance and decadent lifestyle kind of ruins his career, gives him a bad reputation. So he decides, from a hideout over a Spanish restaurant in Manhattan, I don't know, I'm sure Ricky Gervais will explain, but he decides to fake frontline war reports. And he can, because obviously it's the radio. I think that's right there very interesting to do it radio, right? I mean, radio is still very popular, by the way. Also podcasts, of course, that's, I think, given new life to the audio medium of how to be entertained and get your news, but not quite. And so I think that screams a little bit of a budgetary choice. But then the other thing that I think is really weird about this is, doesn't this seem like a TV show to you? Like a British TV show, no less. Like, it seems like, and I mean that in a positive way, because, one of the things I like about British humor is that it has a lot of intellectualism in it. And I love intellectual humor. I like all kinds of humor, but I think they're, a really special something. And, obviously a lot of us feel this way because a lot of us enjoy John Oliver and The Daily Show and The Colbert Report. That's all intelligent, humor. But, the Brits invented it. They're really, really good over there. And so I think that this kind of has an episodic quality to it. So I'm not quite sure how it would work as a movie. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about this, besides if you think this sounds good, is what do you think of the Netflix content to date? I have to tell you, I have yet to watch anything on Netflix. I think House of Cards is pretty good. Maybe Daredevil will change my mind. But I don't think I've ever watched anything on Netflix and been like, man, why isn't this in a movie theater? This could play in a movie theater. Or this could be on like a major television network. I never felt that way. Or I guess in this case, a major cable network, since those are the goal these days instead of network. Network has kind of become a little bit of a diss, which I believe I was one of the first to pioneer. But I've not really been impressed with Netflix content as of yet. And so I'm hoping they could change my mind with some of these projects they have upcoming, like the Adam Sandler movie, The Western, and also the Pee Wee Herman film that's coming out, Pee Wee's Big Holiday. That sounds pretty good, but it also kind of sounds a little bit like a TV movie, right? I think this is going to be a big hurdle for Netflix, and maybe Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon 2 will be a little more cinematic, but I guess that's what it is. It's really missing a cinematic quality to it. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you watch a bunch of movies in a row that went straight to video and didn't really get a theatrical release, like you feel, at first, you're like, wow, undiscovered movies, Tease, this is great. But then I think after you watch like 3 or 4, you're like, wow, it's a good thing this isn't what the movie business is, or it would be out of business. It just really can be very trying, and I worry that that's what Netflix is doing. I also, on a side note, I actually don't like binge watching. I know some people enjoy it personally, but I think it creates too much of an insular experience, and so I think it hurts these properties from a media perspective. It helps them when they get awards show coverage, etc., etc. But since there isn't that weekly discussion, because people watch it at their own pace, so therefore it's almost impossible to discuss it with someone else, right? It's really hard to recap it. People have to recap it immediately. Like some poor reporter sits there and has to watch all 13 episodes immediately and write about them in depth, and it's a race to get them up as fast as possible. So, I mean, sometimes they release the first few episodes to the press early so they can recap them then. But still, nonetheless, you know, I think it really hurts it in terms of being part of the pop culture experience. So that's, I think, so while binge watching might be awesome for an individual, I think from a business perspective and a publicity perspective and a fan perspective, it's really just not a good practice. So I think that's another hurdle for Netflix. Because look at Game of Thrones. It airs weekly, biggest show on TV, one of the biggest shows of all time. All right, so that's the second story of the day. Now, the third story of the day was brought to my attention by Elizabeth Garcia, and she read an article in the New York Times about China and Hollywood, and I've included a link in the video description to this article because I think it's very good, I think it's worth reading, and it has some interesting pictures in it as well. But Elizabeth and I had a little bit of a fun time joking about how the New York Times is behind us here on Beyond the Trailer because we've known about the importance of China for quite some time. But anyway, the article was detailing how China doesn't want to just be an audience or invest money in Hollywood, which, by the way, they're doing both, so which is why Hollywood loves them so much. They want to be an active partner. They want to have an active role in the entertainment that's entering their country. So that means in a production capacity and also on screen. Now, the big players, and this is, I think, the focus of the article largely, was to highlight Oriental DreamWorks. Really weird name to call it Oriental DreamWorks, especially considering who owns the company. Now, it's not only part of DreamWorks, but it's partially owned by the Chinese government, and then also a company, an investment company called China Media Capital, which is trying to invest in a lot of entertainment ventures right now. And their goal is to not only contribute to, you know, right now they're animating Kung Fu Panda 3 over there. Great choice. They're saying, and DreamWorks is saying, this is to give the film some authenticity, to really give it that, you know, accurate Chinese flavor, so that not only do we feel we're getting something more authentic, but when it plays in China, it plays better. And by the way, another impetus for people to team up with China creatively is because not only will you get more money, but you're also more likely to make it through the very difficult, approval system to get your movie to play in China. They don't take every American movie or any movie that's submitted. The government has to approve said films and pick release dates. So if China itself, and in this case, the Chinese government, because they own a stake in Oriental DreamWorks, gets some of the profit of said movie, they'll be more aggressive in when they position. For instance, really no American movies came out during the Lunar New Year, which is the biggest movie-going time of the year. They saved that for all their, you know, homegrown films, and they made a pretty penny. Hollywood's like, how can we get our hands on some of that money? Also, China, though, isn't really totally giving all this money to America, even though they're supposed to get it, and that includes some of their investment promises, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, in this article Elizabeth so graciously forwarded to me, they talk about Oriental DreamWorks and how not only are they wanting to make Kung Fu Panda a more authentic film, Kung Fu Panda 3, but they want to, you know, start to develop their own animation talent. So they were talking to animators who are animating out of China and working on, and they have pictures of the office that looks just like any American animation studio, and they're working on Kung Fu Panda 3. And what's so fascinating about this is that that's animation talent that could have gone to Studio Ghibli, but it didn't. It went to Oriental DreamWorks. So you're seeing a real shift, not only in the style of animation that people want to see, but who they want to see it from. And Studio Ghibli better get in there if they truly want to reinvent themselves, or maybe they are going to just close shop. But some people felt they might reinvent themselves as a digital animation studio. And if they want to do that, they better get some talent. Or they could let Oriental DreamWorks, I guess, train everybody and then hire them away. Although Studio Ghibli, of course, is in Japan, so maybe that's a problem as well. But, you know, I think when you think Asian animation, you often think Studio Ghibli. So very, very interesting situation what's developing over there. And then, of course, you know, choices have to be made with characters and stuff to please the Chinese government. And some people have a problem with that as well. You know, censorship, especially when people have some problems with some of the things the Chinese government does outside of the movie business. So interesting, very, very interesting story, and expect this to continue to develop and to see more and more of China, you know, very, you know, slowly, well, it's going to seem slow. I think you're going to turn around one day and be like, holy crap, I'm watching a movie with like major Chinese actors in it, and a lot of the movie takes place in China. I think that's going to happen maybe in the next year or so. You already saw it in Avengers Age of Ultron, but we're talking even more so. So those are the 3 stories of the day. The viewer question comes from Sabine, and Sabine wrote me a really great question about animation, which I think is a good fit with today. So Sabine Sheridan says, Dear Grace, please answer my question. I have been posting this frequently, and please answer it at least when the time is right. The time is today, Sabine. So I said, thank you for not giving up. And so Sabine says, the Lego movie attracted more adults than kids in terms of quality. I think that's true. I know a number of kids, talking to friends and just through the grapevine, with people saying, I tried to take some kids to see the Lego movie, and I'll be darned if they didn't have a good time. They just did not enjoy it, but I loved it. So I saw that happening in a couple of places, so I think that that's true. So Sabine continues saying, and Big Hero 6 was one of the first Disney films to talk about dealing with death. Actually, I don't think that's true, Sabine. They deal with death a lot in Disney films. Maybe they dealt a little bit more so, usually just kind of as in the background, but it's been happening, I think, since Bambi. Much to the annoyance of many Disney animation fans, because it's a little cliche at this point. But I see what you're saying, Sabine. So Sabine continues, because I like where she's going with this, and she says, as more and more animated films are getting complicated and more mature, why not make PG-13, R, and even NC-17 rated animated films? I don't know about NC-17, but I can see an R one. And if the film industry is able to make PG-13 and higher rated animated films a success, why don't they make animated films that are also 2 or 3 hours long, like a Hobbit movie? And also, do you think animated films can cross over into drama? Maybe an adaptation of Catcher in the Rye, or scare the crap out of a person with horror, like an animated version of The Exorcist. I would love for you to answer my question. I love your channel, and it's my favorite channel. Oh, Sabine, that's so nice of you to say. I really, really appreciate that. So as for your question, well, I think that one problem animation has run into is that the quality of special effects has come so far. It used to be, particularly for Disney animation, you'd be like, well, we should do The Little Mermaid as animation because they could never do it in live action. Look at Splash, far cry from The Little Mermaid. But when you consider today's special effects and what they were able to do with Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, they can do a mermaid today. They could do a live action Beauty and the Beast. Look what they did with Maleficent. Their special effects are so good at this point, and they can do so much. They can, look what they did with Paul Walker. That animation has less and less of a place, in terms of, adult content, because they don't need to. And also American audiences just aren't into animation as much as Asian audiences. Asian audiences love animated movies. They're often some of the biggest grossers of the year there. Frozen made a ton of money in Asia. But American audiences still view animation largely as family entertainment. They'll go and see it in droves, but adult animation is difficult. So somebody is going to have to come up with that perfect combination of something that is best interpreted or best portrayed in animation, and come up so that people feel, oh well, this needs to be animated. It couldn't be done with special effects, and then they need to find a way to make it something that everybody could see. And that's the real issue. I think that because animation appeals so much to kids, you want a kid to be able to go and see an animated film. I think it will be hard to explain to a child, no, this animated movie isn't for you. Obviously that takes place in Asia, but I think, people can, the right project of quality can change people's mind. So I've said this before, and I'll say it again here, what this really relies on is someone who's a visionary, a Walt Disney, a Jeffrey Katzenberg, a Howard Ashman, a Hayao Miyazaki, deciding to do this and taking it upon themselves. You're seeing it happen somewhat in comedy with the Lego movie, as you said, but I don't know how much Phil Lord, the Lego movie, will it continue with that adult track? We'll see what happens, and that's very much Phil Lord and Chris Miller's doing. So you need to find talent that wants to take the gamble and is willing to risk everything, and there could be a potentially huge payoff. So I think it's a worthy gamble, but really it's going to be up to one individual or a group of individuals to take the risk and prove to people and say, you know what, I'm going to show you that you don't think you want to watch this, but you do. And I think that going the genre route is a very exciting option. So Sabine, maybe someday it will be you. And I think that if you have this kind of passion, that's something you could totally consider, especially as we have so much successful digital content. I'm sure Netflix would be very interested in making a deal like this. If it can be, they're paying millions of dollars on animated movies, though. Digital animated movies can be quite expensive, hundreds of millions of dollars, far more than Netflix has paid yet. But I think that as the digital revolution continues, that could be another perhaps way to get these kind of animated movies out there, maybe an animated Catcher in the Rye, etc. And who knows what could happen. But it's going to depend on the audience, but then also on visionaries to make this stuff happen, and also a way that you can coexist with special effects. So that's my answer to your question, Sabine, and I'd be very curious to how everybody else here feels. Would you be interested in watching an animated horror film, or an animated drama, or a 2 to 3 hour animated movie? I'd totally be into it. I love The Legend of Korra. I love animated movies. I love what they do out at Studio Ghibli. I think it's a wonderful medium, and I think the answer, in my opinion, to combating special effects is to bring back the artistry to it. Kind of like what we saw with Song of the Sea and The Tale of Princess Cayuga, and also what you're seeing with stop motion. I think the artistry is really important, the stylization, to make it that you would have it animated. All right, so thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in today. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and the viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.